A first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages coming up. But first, The Outsider with Laurence Fox and Harry Miller. And last year, we saw a rare victory for freedom of speech. Retired copper Harry won a landmark court case after the police warned him to, quote, check his thinking over tweets on transgender rights. Humberside Constabulary were compared to the Gestapo in the High Court after they turned up at Harry's workplace in January 2019 to warn him about his Twitter post, despite the fact he hadn't broken the law. Judges ruled it breached his human rights and said his treatment could have a chilling effect on public debate. So now, the vindicated Harry is determined to stop the same chilling censorship happening to anyone else and has teamed up with top actor turned Reclaim Party leader Laurence Fox to launch a new project to stand up to woke laws. The Bad Law Project will target any institution deemed guilty of overt politicisation and will go after those that discriminate against individuals on the grounds of conscience, belief or lack of belief. The project launches tomorrow, but here's a taster. Don't mess with you two. I'm delighted to say Harry Miller and Laurence Fox join me live now. So, Laurence, was it partly Harry's case that inspired you to launch this Bad Law Project?
Absolutely, Dan, and lovely to see you. It's a David versus Goliath. Harry, an ordinary man, made a perfectly ordinary expression of freedom of speech, and he was attacked by the enormous juggernaut of the establishment that we face all the time. So we sat down and we thought, as politically originally, and then apolitically afterwards, we thought, Harry has made more difference to the laws in this country in one brutal 3-year battle with the College of Policing than you could ever do in an election cycle. So our view is that the way that we're going to help and encourage other people to fight what is a very dangerous and painful battle to avoid being cancelled and unpersoned is that we're going to create a legal framework, an uncancelable legal framework for people who have had their lives deeply affected by cancel culture and our foundational institutions being deeply, deeply corrupted. And I take my hat off to Harry on a daily basis because of what he has been through. The process of what he experienced was the punishment.
Well, and Harry, they sort of messed with the wrong guy when it came to you, right? Because
I've got it on my arm, actually. I've got it tattooed on my arm. Toby Young called me the wrong guy, and I'm incredibly proud of that, because the fact of the matter is, they did pick on the wrong guy, because I'm an obstinate, bloody-minded sort of chap that knows the difference between right and wrong. And I instinctively knew that the police were acting way beyond the boundaries that they should have been behaving. And I just could not sit back and let it happen. You know, people have had their arms and legs blown off fighting for freedom of speech, fighting for our basic British freedoms. So for me to suffer 3 years of heartache and risk losing my house, I suppose, as well as my sanity, really, it was a small price to pay. But having done that and having learned how to do it, what we want to do now is to stand there and operate and act on behalf of other members of the public who have been similarly oppressed by state institutions who act outside of their authority.
And Laurence, do you think that this woke culture, or as Elon Musk describes it, the woke mind virus, is it seeping into our legal system?
It's infected every institution we have, from education. For example, I got an email from my youngest son's school the other day. There's actually a more tragic story, but saying we're going to teach your child in PHSE that their gender identity may not correlate with their biological sex. Now, this is a novel non-majoritarian way of looking at things. So right the way from cradle to grave, we are looking at, I don't even think we should call it woke. I think we should call it something else, and I don't know
because you think it's more sinister.
I think it's much more sinister, and I think it's darker forces that are working through our society. So we believe that the best way of approaching this situation, in the absence of being able to stand as a Tory party, is to sit there and say, could you please, Mr. Justice Knowles, Mr. Justice Nicklin, whoever we're talking about, could you please clarify the law for us? Could you let us know what it is and isn't acceptable for us to say as citizens in this country so we can express ourselves freely? The most crucial and foundational aspect of our lives.
Yeah, one of the terribly sad things, Dan, is that politicians, by and large, have let down the public, and they've contracted out the role of holding institutions to task. So individuals like myself, individuals like Laurence, and now the Bad Law Project. And that says a lot about politicians. They've been behaving like cowards. And we're not cowards. We're many things, but we are certainly not cowards.
But Laurence, we've seen it, haven't we, in high-profile court cases where judges and juries too seem to be sympathetic to left-wing political causes and almost are prepared to overrule laws as a result. I mean, I think about the Colston Five. I think about that ridiculous judge who told the eco-extremists, "Oh my God, you're behind such a good cause, and I want to join your cause," when he failed to jail them for breaking the law. So it sort of works both ways, doesn't it?
I think that the thing about the judiciary is that they are upholding the most central aspects of what we are as a society. So these ideologies that are permeating through every institution, from National Health Service, education, the judiciary, the police force, the church, as you've seen with Calvin Robinson and the appallingly disgusting way he's been treated. These ideologies are not popular with the general public and via the ballot box. They're not. So what's happened is our cultural institutions have been captured. And for a society to function correctly, institutions need to uphold that. And what's happened is, because they can't get voted in, they've decided to rot us from within our institutions. And we go after them, and we go to make sure that your average person in England who holds a standard view that women don't have penises can stand up and get on with their lives.
And Harry, I guess your point and the reason behind this Bad Law Project is that it was very difficult for you to go through the process that you did, but you felt so strongly about it, quite correctly. So you did go through that process, but I guess you want to make it easier for folk who are in a similar situation to you to have support, to have advice. You're going to potentially crowdfund for people in your position too.
Yeah, absolutely. We've learned how to do it. Now, one of the great things that we have an uncancelable crowdfunding platform. So we saw what happened to the truckers in Canada. We saw what happened with Alison Bailey.
Yeah.
We saw what happened in Scotland with Marion Miller. Well, we've set up a crowd fund that is
you're going to do it yourself?
Absolutely uncancelable. Once we take a case on, every £5 that you give, every £10 that you give, every £100 that you give, it will not be sent back to you because we've bowed to some form of woke political pressure. We won't. We will use that money for precisely the purpose that you sent it.
I love this man.
That's a really sensible thing, though, Laurence, isn't it? Because it was terrifying with the truckers in Canada, wasn't it? GoFundMe and everything. So everything you're doing, you don't have to rely on any big tech platform.
No, we've been very careful to make sure that this is... Also, I think it's quite important to say this has no leader. It has no manifesto. It has no agenda. All it has is a set of situations that people can get involved in or not. We're not, as a political party, we've been absolutely suppressed by the banking system. We actually had our bank account removed and withdrawn for no reason whatsoever in previous weeks. So what we're saying is, instead of giving £25 or £5 or £100 or £2 to a political party, if you see someone suffering, like a child who has been suspended from school for misgendering an absolute, completely minority view for misgendering another child and being threatened by the police and by his staff members. If you want to get behind the case for us to defend a child, or you want to get behind a case for us to stand up against the police over various things,
they can come to
you can.
OK, great stuff. That's Laurence Fox and Harry Miller of the Bad Law Project.